Greater Kendall Business Association. My name is Carlos Rivero. I am chairman of the organization, and I have the distinct pleasure and honor to interview one of our esteemed members each and every time. Today with us, we have Alejandra Aguilera, family lawyer. Alejandra, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Carlos?
Great, great. Thank you. So I always like to say people do business with people they know, like, and trust. So we want to get to know you first before I start asking you about what you do, your business, etc.
Okay.
So where are you from originally?
Bolivia.
Bolivia.
Yes. So my parents are both Bolivian.
Okay.
And I don't know if you know anyone that's Bolivian, but
one other person, it's a mutual friend of ours. So.
Okay. It's a very unique country. And so when I here in Miami, I rarely get to meet another Bolivian. But yes, Bolivian.
Okay. And at what age did you come here?
So actually I'm born here, but my parents are Bolivian. Okay. and everyone in my family is Bolivian.
So when you say here, always in the Miami area?
Always in the Miami area. And then I left when I went to college. I went to New York City.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Where'd you go to school?
NYU, New York University.
NYU. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a prestigious school.
Yes. And originally I wanted to become a reporter. That's why I was interested in with them. They had a journalism school that I was interested in. So I decided to go,
okay.
But it wasn't what I was looking for. Okay. I realized I needed more of a challenge. So I decided to get into law.
And did you go to NYU Law or no?
No, NYU Law, I wish. No, actually I couldn't do the cold weather in New York.
Okay.
So I was definitive. I'm going back to Miami, back to my roots. So I'm going to go to apply, and I decided to go to St. Thomas University School of Law. It's a great school, yes. So went there and graduated and became also a prosecutor after that.
Oh, who did you work for back then?
Catherine Fernandez Rondo.
Okay.
Yes.
That's where my sister is a criminal attorney, and that's where she started as well. I think most people start there, right? A lot of people?
Well, the people who are interested in getting court experience, because there are attorneys that they don't want anything to do with court. Okay. They just want to draft documents. But I wanted nothing but court. So I said, I need the most experience. I'm going to go become a prosecutor. That's what happened for 2 years, and I got all the court experience. Like I did jury trials, several of them, and just learning how to manage your cases. That's important.
Okay.
So after that, worked for a nonprofit, and that's where I got my family law experience.
Okay.
And after that, you may have heard of them, Legal Services of Greater Miami.
Of course.
Yes. Great organization. But I did a lot of family law there, and I also wanted to help my community. So my office is in Palmetto Bay, which is not far from where I grew up.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So going back to your experience in court, do you still litigate a lot, or are most cases settled out of court?
So a lot of people think that in family law, you don't go to court that much. Maybe we're at an office talking, negotiating. Once in a while, you go to court for trial. No, we are in court almost every day because we are arguing motions that have to do with discovery violations, or it could be the most simple thing, like I need continuance or more time to do something in the case, so I have to go to court. So we're constantly in court and in family law.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Each state has its own divorce laws, right? Or statutes. What is it that is maybe not unique to Florida, but how is Florida maybe different in some respects when you're talking about laws pertaining to divorce?
I'm not familiar with other states and what their family statutes say necessarily and how it's comparable to Florida, but I can tell you that Florida is a no-fault state.
What does that mean?
That means that the courts are thinking about equitable, this is a key word, equitable distribution, which is what makes Florida unique, because basically if you're in front of a judge, the judge is not looking about as to why you're getting a divorce. They don't really, not that they don't care, but it's not relevant for them when they're looking at equitable distribution, which is dividing the assets and the liabilities, the debts. So the court's more mindful about what is the fair way to divide these things that you both have acquired during the marriage. They're not thinking about, well, why did you do that? And it's all about looking at the assets and the debts.
Okay. Kind of like with blinders on, right? Because they don't care if one partner was unfaithful or anything like that. It's just pure numbers at that point.
Right. And a lot of people ask me that, oh, well, you should find it relevant that, by the way, my spouse cheated, and I want to tell the judge that. I want the judge to know how awful of a human being he is. And I have to explain to them that it's not like that in court. You're not going to be testifying that way. You have to consider the court's really looking at the numbers, like you said, the value of that asset and how much debt you have acquired during the marriage. They're not looking at why if your husband is a cheater or if your wife is a cheater. They're not looking at that. So I have to explain a lot of explaining and guidance for clients.
What if, I'm going to give you some scenarios. What if the husband or the wife, whatever, does have an extramarital affair, and, for example, they pay for that other person's, let's say they maintain an apartment or they go on trips and things like that. How does that work into this equitable distribution? So
it ties in when it has to do with money coming out of the pot, that marital pot that the judge is going to look at. So if the judge is looking at how much there is to distribute in assets, well, one spouse went out and bought vacations, spending thousands and thousands of dollars. Now you're taking away, it's called a dissipation of assets.
Okay.
You're taking away the money that should have been divided to the other spouse. So yes. So in that case, the cheating and all the other side things that caused this dissipation of assets, they're going to look at that.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about, you talked about what's accumulated as a married couple. What about if I have some asset that I own personally before the marriage? Let's say it's a piece of property and my wife is not on the deed. How does that affect things? I mean, is that considered part of the marital assets, or
it could be?
It could be.
It could be. That's the answer, because there are some things that you've acquired before the marriage and you keep them separate, and they're so clearly separate. They never commingled with the marital things like bank accounts and assets. If they're kept separate, in some scenarios, you can keep them separate, even through a divorce.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes when you have now a property, for instance, that's increased in value during the marriage, that non-marital property that you acquire before the marriage, that increase in value, they're going to look at that because that could get distributed. So there are things that come into play, even though you had acquired it before the marriage.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it's important to have a prenuptial agreement. You see how I did that? You see how I did that?
Very good segue. Very good segue.
Yeah, I'm proud of myself.
Very good, Alejandra. So that's something I always think about in terms of, is this a lack of trust, or is it something smart to do? That's what I weigh in my mind. I do not have a prenuptial agreement. As I mentioned, I've been married for 45 years. And so how does this work? What goes through people's minds?
So the only reason why people are scared of bringing up the whole prenup is because there's this taboo, oh, well, you're not, what do you think, it's going to end in divorce? And that's why you're getting a prenuptial agreement. This is out of love. This is, it's not about that. It's actually about communicating, being able to communicate with the other person that you're with, because there's going to be a lot of conversation, honest conversations when you do a prenuptial about each other's financial situation. You're not going to sign a document blindly. You're going to make sure that you know what debt, what assets this other person is coming into the marriage with. And that's important. So if you're not comfortable talking to the person you're about to commit your whole life with about that, then there is something to discuss there for sure. Like so I see a hand in hand when we're talking about, I'm going to commit to you and we're going to create this thing together, marriage, and we're going to be married. Let's sit down and have an honest conversation and consider doing a prenuptial agreement, because in reality, we're both going to be protected. We're both going to be in a better situation. So it's for me, there's always that person that doesn't know how to communicate they need a prenup, but it's so necessary.
I would be one of those people.
That conversation also comes up with postnuptial agreements, because after you get married.
What is a postnup?
So postnuptial agreement is after you get married, same idea as a prenuptial agreement.
Okay, but you're already
married.
After
you're married. It's the same idea. You're protecting assets. You're entering into a contract, and you're saying, if in case of a divorce, these are my assets that are going to be kept out of the divorce. They're separate property. They're non-marital, and that just helps save a lot of money if you do get divorced, and it just eases the whole situation. So if there are children involved in a divorce, you want to make sure that divorce gets done quickly, and that helps.
What does a prenup cover? Now that you mentioned the kids, what are the types of things it's covered?
Prenups are for assets and liabilities. You can't really get into the child support. That's going to be determined at a later date.
Okay.
If a divorce does occur, they have to calculate the child support. So you can't even talk about that.
Okay.
But there are other things that you can talk about that have to do with the child. For instance, college. Who wants to? It could be anything crafted for those needs. The two people that are going to sign that document know what should go in there. So there's a discussion with the attorney who's drafting it about what they want to protect.
Out of, if you had to guess, what percentage of marriages, either from your experience or just a sophisticated guess, what percentage of marriages have a prenup or a postnup in place?
Oh boy. I don't know that. I would like to know that statistic, actually. I'm pretty sure not enough.
Not enough.
That's my answer.
Your answer is not enough. Okay, I get it. To me, it would be, I would guess something like less than 1%, something like that.
Yeah, really?
I think so. I mean,
well, then that's my mission in life, is to educate people on how important it is. I'd be shocked to hear it's that low. Yeah.
I don't know. That's just my concept of it. It never even went through my mind when I got married. So.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, it's not something that people talk about, unfortunately, but think about it like this. When you are shopping for cars, for instance, and someone says to you, well, this car works 56% of the time. Are you going to buy that car? And if you do, you're going to get insurance, right?
Right.
Because chances are, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
That's
a high percentage.
So think about it. That's the statistic of, what marriages end in divorce. Knowing that's a statistic, if you're really going to protect a business you worked hard for or a property you worked hard to get, what else? There's no other option. You get a prenuptial to protect all that before you get married.
So we were just talking about children. And here's a conception, and you can say true or not true. For child custody, the mother always has the upper hand. True or not true? In Florida, let's talk about.
Not true.
Not true.
Not true by law.
Okay.
Every judge has let me back up there.
Okay.
I got to be careful my words, because it's not, every human that makes a decision has their background, their biases.
Okay.
I think that's my opinion.
Okay.
But no, it's not supposed to come into play, whether you're the mother or the father. Not anymore. It's in Florida law.
What is the law now? As far as who gets custody, time with the children, all those things, how is all that decided?
If in a divorce.
In a divorce, yeah.
Or in a paternity case
Okay.
where they're not married and a father and a mother want to argue about time sharing, the judge is going to look at what the law says now, which is that mother and father, they have equal time sharing. It's going to start out at that point. It would have to take a lot of evidence to show that it shouldn't be equal time sharing, because the laws in the state, the public policy is that parents should have frequent and consistent communication and contact with the
Okay.
children. They want both parents involved. So they're saying that out loud in the law. It should be equal time sharing,
Hmm.
unless you can prove that dad or mom is a danger or that something is going to be detrimental to it. It's not in the best interest of the child.
Got it. What about the cases where, and I've heard this in the past from divorced friends. Well, my ex was supposed to drop off the kids and she didn't, or there's guys that don't want to be with their kids, that don't see their kids. What happens in those cases, driven by either the court or by one of the partners? What typically happens?
If one parent says that the other parent doesn't want to be active in the child's life,
Right.
the evidence has to be presented in front of the judge.
Right.
So if the evidence shows that one parent is not doing what they have to do under the law as a parent, and the judge is determining what time sharing to give, they're going to weigh that factor. There's like a list of factors that the court goes through to award time sharing. So it starts out 50-50, right? And then, and if evidence is presented, for instance, that one parent is an alcoholic, one parent has anger issues because he's been arrested, and all these things can be proven.
Hmm.
That's what the judge will consider, and the judge will do a time sharing schedule based on that.
Okay. Alimony. What is? Yeah,
you need like a
yeah.
segue there.
I should have had some music playing, right? Some scary music.
The doom music.
Yeah. Alimony. I guess it's every breadwinner's nightmare, maybe.
That's a good
because
title.
you can't say the male, you can't say female. Every breadwinner's nightmare.
Yeah.
How does that work? Can it go on forever? How is that? How does it work?
And there is so much information out there about alimony, but the laws changed recently about that. Well, first of all, they banned permanent alimony. So permanent alimony
okay.
doesn't exist anymore. And it also defines what's the maximum that you can ask for, durational, like for a moment of time of alimony. How it depends on how many years you've been married. So it defined that.
And how about husband works, mom is a stay-at-home mom, or vice versa? How does that change things when you're talking alimony? This is somebody who has, or hasn't worked outside the home for a long time, or has never worked outside the home. I'm sure there's a special consideration for that.
Yeah, it's one of the factors a judge will consider in awarding alimony, because they're going to look at, is this individual able to pay the alimony, and if the other individual is in need of alimony.
Okay.
So if let's say you are the stay-at-home parent and you sacrifice going to law school and becoming a lawyer, and the other person excelled in becoming a doctor and now makes twice as much money, that comes into play a lot, heavily.
Yeah. And how about, let's switch gears a little bit, talking about divorce and business. Let's say, I own a business. I have, let's take one scenario. I own a business. I'm the sole proprietor. Not necessarily set up like that. It's a corporation. I get divorced.
Mm-hmm.
Is my wife entitled to a piece of that business?
Is the wife entitled to a piece of, this is like the most common topic I get from business owners.
Okay.
And a lot of people don't know this. When you have a business that you've created, and during the marriage, it will become a marital asset.
Okay.
It will get valued. They will get all the information in that business to see what are the assets in the business. There will be an expert that gets to look into your books. I mean, it all comes into play. So business owners should know about prenuptial agreements and postnuptial agreements, because that's the sure way to protect your business from coming into play in a divorce.
Okay. And what about businesses that don't have a lot of assets, a lot of revenue, but not a lot of assets? I'm going to assume that they're going to take that into account, the revenue versus, you have few assets.
They're going to take that into account. They're also going to look at what's in your bank account. And if you're paying your personal mortgage and you're paying your personal car and you're paying all these bills that are considered personal, guess what? That's considered income.
Okay.
The court's going to look at that and impute the income. They're going to say, well, if you're getting all these benefits from your business, then it's considered income. So that comes into play when we talk about alimony, child support. So it's very relevant.
What are some common mistakes you've seen men and women make who are going through divorce or about to file for divorce? Besides not having a prenup, what are some other mistakes they make along the way?
They'll start working really hard in their business and get that job they've always got. And great that you get promoted,
right.
But not great if we're looking at your income for alimony purposes. And now you've shown how you can make more money. And now it's going to affect the child support. It's going to affect the alimony. So going and getting that more income, for instance, or that second job. Those are things that you should not do when you're going to file for divorce or you are in a divorce.
Right.
So buying investments, moving their money when they're not supposed to, that's a common mistake. You're not supposed to touch anything when a divorce is filed.
How common is people hiding money?
Oh, very common.
Yeah.
Yeah. People think that if you withdraw the cash, it disappears somewhere.
Right.
They won't see it.
It's just not there anymore.
It's not there anymore.
Yeah.
There's nothing. I did nothing wrong.
Right.
But no, we could see everything through the records.
Right.
That's why it's important to get an attorney that knows how to navigate that system.
You mentioned that at least judges are supposed to do things with blinders on. So how about this scenario? The people going through a divorce, and this is, I think this is pretty extreme, and one is being unfaithful, continues to be unfaithful during the divorce process, and takes it to the next level by taking the kids over to the home of their new partner. Is that, first of all, it sounds dumb, but is it illegal? Is it going to cost them in the divorce, or is it just, like you said, or is the judge not going to look at stuff like that?
It's hard not to look at something that seems so, I don't know if it's
egregious, no?
Yes, that's a good way to put it. Malicious sometimes. It could get really bad.
Okay.
Especially if you're involving children. So if whatever you're doing, that's it's not illegal. It's not in a violation of the law necessarily. Right. It just looks bad.
Yeah.
And it could also create more problems because every case can still be resolved, right? So right. Unless you're at the end for trial, then there's no resolution. That's what you have to think about is, are my actions during a divorce, are my actions something that can bite me in the butt in the future? You got to be very careful.
How long is the arm of family law? For example, I don't know if a child is being abused. Does family law play a role there? Is it already criminal? Or what are some other things, if any, that you do as a family lawyer?
Restraining orders, injunctions.
Those things come into play?
Come into play. So when you talk about domestic violence, when someone feels they are in fear and in need of protection, they will call the police, obviously, and then also get a restraining order. So we help represent victims and also those who are being accused of domestic violence. Not in the criminal court, but there are attorneys that work with that realm of domestic violence, because it could be civil, it could also be criminal.
Okay. If somebody wanted to or is going to contemplating divorce, what's the first thing they should do? They don't have a prenup.
They don't have a prenup and they're contemplating
Yeah.
divorce, the next step is to call me.
Okay. No, that's fair. That's fair.
Call a divorce attorney
Right.
to consult with them, because that's definitely the first step. You know, when you're sick, you call the doctor. You want to call the person that's going to tell you what the next step is. And you don't, if you have an asset or something of worth, you want to protect that. So you got to navigate in a smart way.
And what sort of questions would you ask on that first call?
A lot of questions.
Okay. Just a couple of key ones.
Marriage. The
Date of
date of marriage is really important to
Okay.
me.
Why is that?
Because that's where you stop. That's the marker of where you start valuing the business, valuing the properties, valuing the assets.
Okay,
So
got
that's an
it.
important marker.
Okay.
Date of separation is also another one.
Okay.
So sometimes people don't even remember that, and it's
Right.
important to know that. And also just, list of all your assets and your debts is
Okay.
important.
All right. Alejandra, we're out of time. How do people who need to get in touch with you get in touch with you?
I'm on Instagram,
Okay.
Aguilera Law Center. I'm
Okay.
also, I have a website, aguileralawcenter.com.
Okay.
And if they want to call me as well, they
Mhm.
can do that. If you Google Aguilera Law Center, it's 305-255-FIRM. They can call and schedule a consultation.
Great phone number.
Thank you.
I won't forget that one. And thank you for visiting with us today on GKBA Today. And next time we'll have another esteemed member